Um, Boxing is hard, man. Fighting in general, fighting is a it's chaos. It's chaos, and really, what you're doing with boxing is you're trying to recreate, and with not just boxing, MMA or whatever combat sports you're into. We're trying to recreate a fight or a real fight, but we're trying to do it in a safer environment, and we're trying to do it for sport or for sometimes even for fun or for money. But it's not a real fight. Um, there's differences between a real fight and a boxing match. But every once in a while, you get these fights that capture the unpredictability of a real fight, of a fight where anything could happen. And it is the same thing in boxing most of the time. But there's regulations that allow people that participate in boxing to have certain amount of control in a street fight. You don't have that luxury. You don't have a time limit. You don't have a ref. Usually people are angry, and in boxing that's not the case. In boxing, most people are taught not to be angry, not to be taken up by their emotions. But the reason this fight with fandora and tszyu, I think, or tszyu, I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. Um, the reason it was so impactful in my opinion is because it resembled the unpredictability and the way a fight could just change course due to one certain slight movement that you do, or one mistake that you do, could lead to a cut and could cost you the fight. Run into a shot. Um, Anything could happen in boxing. Why? Because really, it's supposed to be controlled chaos. And from everything from the training to the gloves to the rules and everything, it's supposed to be trying to control chaos. And so sometimes that chaos just lets loose, and that's what happened in this fight. You know, Costa I think was winning the fight in the beginning. His jab was better. His counters were on point. His timing was on point. And he seemed to be winning the fight in the first couple of rounds. Now, what happened was he threw a shot, and he tried to go under the opponent's two, or he thought that he was going to throw a two down the middle. And when you do that, you are leading with your head sometimes. And he ran into the elbow of fandora. Fandora was just trying to keep his defense tight. He wasn't really going for no elbows. He was trying to keep his defense tight, and he kind of braced himself for impact. You can see in the video he braced himself for impact because he thought that Costa was probably going to go to the body or something like that. But he just ran into the elbow, and that's how it started. Um, you know, it's like boxers, they try to minimize their bad luck and maximize their good luck by, keeping their hands up, you know, um, keeping their defense tight, not letting anything slip in, throwing the jab, trying to range find. All of that stuff is trying to for them not to make mistakes. But even then, you could train, and then something just happens. You forget to do something one time sometimes, and that's it. That's all it takes. That's why a lot of boxers, especially these days, are very strategical because they know how hard it is. You know, they pull out of fights a lot, right? Um, or or if something doesn't go the way they want it, if like the gloves that they want don't happen. A lot of fighters are like that. You know, Mayweather had to have, once he made it to the top, he had to have the gloves he wanted. He had to have the ring size he wanted. Everything had to be the way he wanted because, he knew the risks involved. He knew that any small detail that changes or slips the other way, boom. That's why fights are so hard to predict. Um, they're harder to predict than things that involve more people. Um, because most people tend to follow, and so if something you can influence a lot of people more than you can try to influence one person. I know that sounds wrong, but it is because with one person the risks are more refined, right? And um, the mistakes are more seen. It's like, for example, if you're aiming for something small with something small, the risks of you missing are higher. But if you have like a shotgun or something like a big softball, and the thing you're trying to hit is bigger, you know, the chances of you hitting that object is greater. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if it does, but yeah, this fight, man, was bloody, man. It was like before that, Fandora was already bleeding from the nose because Costa Tszyu was hitting him with the jab. By the way, Costa Tszyu, his father used to be a boxer, and I remember he beat Julio Cesar Chavez, and I remember nobody being mad at it in Mexico. And the reason for that, like, because you notice that when Oscar beat Chavez, people were mad at Oscar for doing that. And they didn't respect him or anything. Even when Pernell Whitaker, you know, fought him, they still didn't respect him either. Um, but when Costa Sayu beat Oscar, I mean Chavez, the Mexican fans were like, oh, whatever. And it's just Mexican fans just value people that fight that way, the way that Costa Tszyu fought. Also, Chavez was on his way out already, but at the same time, he was on the way out against Oscar De La Hoya as well. But people were just mad at him because of the way he won, I guess. They just didn't like the style that Oscar De La Hoya was implementing. Um, but for example, in this fight, even though Costa Tszyu lost the fight, I'm pretty sure a lot of people want to see him fight again. A lot of people respect the way he went out, and that's the kind of stuff Mexican fans like. You know, it's like a cultural thing. It's also stuff that's been sold to them as being the brand that Mexicans like or whatever. I personally don't agree with all that stuff like Mexican style and stuff like that, but I mean it's popular. So what are you gonna do? Even Costa Tszyu at the end of the fight said, they're the type of fights I like. That Mexican style is what I want to do. So, I mean, what are you gonna do? It's a thing. So people like that kind of stuff. Costa Tszyu likes that kind of stuff. At the end of the fight, he was like laughing and smiling. Here's the thing, bro. Like, I remember, and I don't know if it was against Costa Tszyu, but I remember Chavez bleeding like a lot towards the end of his career. He had a lot of scar tissue, and I know for a fact this young fighter, Costa um, likes those fighters because he said it before. He likes the old school fighters, and he mentioned Mexican style. So I'm pretty sure he saw his father and he saw Chavez, and he always wanted to be in a fight like that. It was probably his dream to grow up and be in a rugged fight like that. And watching him at the end of the fight, bleeding and laughing, it just made me realize this guy is some kind of beast, bro. He is some kind of beast, and he's happy, even though part of him was sad because I feel like he thinks maybe he got set up or something. I feel like towards the end of the interview, you could kind of tell he was kind of saying something. Um, Something about the whole thing made him feel like he was there, like he was where he wanted to be. Kind of hard to explain, but I feel like that part of him was like, I'm here. This is what I dreamed about, and now I got the fight that I wanted. And it's here. I feel like he has a lot of things he could still do in boxing. I feel like he could have won the fight if that thing wouldn't have happened. And I think that, unfortunately, where he's at right now, he's almost like trapped. So his options, the stuff that happened with him, like they switched up the fighter. He was supposed to be fighting one time Thurman, and he pulled out of the fight because he had a big injury in his elbow or his bicep, um, and so they had to switch him up for Fandora. Now, when the announcement was made that tszyu was not going to fight Thurman anymore, and he was going to fight Fandora instead, I thought that there was a risk that tszyu might lose the fight. Personally, I seriously did think that. And it wasn't because so much that Fandora was so great and so difficult of a fighter, which he is. He's a tough fighter. And he's going to make it tough against anybody. But I just thought that the switch is what was going to make it, the difficulty. Because fighters train, you guys already know this, people already talked about it. Fighters train for one guy. Their sparring sessions were for one guy. And then switching it up at the last moment, a lot of times makes it difficult, especially if the more technical you are, the more you're going to have difficulty adapting to a switch like that. The more rugged you are, the more easier it is for you. So that's something to think about as well. But we'll see what happens, man. I in a way, I kind of think Tszyu is he kind of messed up, by making deals with the PBC. Okay, I don't think he has a big future there. I think the whole thing stinks. The way they did him. He was still gonna win though. The way the fight was going, it seemed like he was still gonna win. But what happened. It's the unpredictability of fighting, and there is certain people that can control that stuff. That's why you have to be strategical, even if you don't want to. Mexican fans don't like strategy. Okay, they don't like. That's the reason why they don't like Canelo right now, because he's very strategical now with the fights he picks. He's very strategical with the days he picks, weight classes, all of that. He wants everything to be controlled. He wants everything to be inspected and to be on his favor. Okay, Mexican fans don't like that, but to be honest, that's the way to go, because if not, stuff like this happens to you. In controlled chaos, you have to be strategical. because if you don't control the chaos, somebody else will control the chaos, and they will use that against you. Okay, so that's my take on that. A lot of people, you can't have it both ways, because a lot of people look at Chavez, and Chavez Senior, you know, he always complains that Don King, took a lot of money from him, you know, and he tells the young kids, learn from my mistakes, be better than me, or at least he should say that. One of the guys that is doing better than him is Canelo Alvarez, but he's hated for it. He's not making the same mistakes. He's not being cheated by his promoters. He's making sure that he's getting paid top dollar, and people hate him for it. So you can't have it both ways. You got to choose. You either want boxers to be better than the past and not be cokeheads and have like 50 baby mamas and stuff like that, or you want them to be like Canelo, who doesn't do all of that, who does know how to strategize his money, and who is a better businessman. Now, me personally, I from my point of view, I want to see the fights. Okay, but I am not blind to the business of boxing, and I'm not blind to the fact that this is controlled chaos. And if you don't control it, somebody else will control it against you and use it against you.